What's up, everybody? We're back with another review, and today we are talking about Chernobylite 2 Exclusion Zone. A few years ago, I think it was 2021, Chernobylite, the first one came out. This is the sequel. It's currently only on PC through Steam, and it's currently in early access. And we'll talk about it in the review, but boy, is it in early access. So before we do our usual pros, so-sos, and cons, we're going to talk about some of the differences between the first one and the second one. So the first one was a purely first-person based narrative. It wasn't open world. There was different parts of the map that you could openly explore, although they blocked off areas with radiation and stuff like that. And so every day you were at your base, you could build things within your base, but you just had your base area. And then you would go and set out on a mission, go complete that mission, come back to your base, do anything your base needs, whether that's build beds for new people in the base, or upgrade equipment in the base, upgrade tooling in the base, etc. And then you would do all that. Once you played through the story, you could get people to come back to your base. There was a handful of people that would come back to your base, and then you could do training with them. So you could come back to your base, do training, and do any upgrades to your base, and then go to bed. Next day, assign yourself and your crew missions, and repeat the process over and over again. And the missions would be in different parts of the overall map, and you could explore within that part of the map, complete objectives. You had to scan. You didn't have to scan, but you could use your scanner to find things around the environment to help you with crafting. So you could craft upgrades for your base, craft medicine, etc. And then once again go back to your base over and over again until you completed the story. So then in Chernobylite 2, instead of doing it through that structure, they decided to have a truly open world, where you have missions every day, and you don't get the new missions until you go to sleep, just like the first one. You have a base like the first one. People come back to your base. You can train with those people. All of that is the same as the first one, except for the open world. And then the base is different as well. Instead of having a confined space, you actually can build more rooms and corridors throughout your base, and there is specific rooms on the base for what you need to build. So there's specific ones. There's 3 different types depending on what you're building, and you can actually unlock other types as you build up through your skill tree. There's a skill tree in this one that's much more expansive that you can train through. And then you also have different factions in this world, and you get a reputation with each faction based off of choices you make through dialogue, missions, etc. And in the first one, the story does change and the outcomes do change based off of the dialogue and the actions that you select, and that remains in this first one as well. Where this one also differs is you have a class essentially, and we'll talk about that more when we talk through our pros, cons, and so-sos. And when you have a class that gives certain attributes more attribute points than others to start, and of course you can upgrade those as well. But this is very different because of that open world concept, and that makes the game way different. Plus there's also the option to be in first person, or when you're in combat also be in third person, which was a big change as well. So the games both take place in a Chernobyl, where Chernobylite is a new mineral created or came to Earth, or whatever, however that you want to describe it. And it is a all-powerful element. It infects people and makes them Chernohosts. The world is still the same, but the way you operate in the world and some of the systems within the world are different. So getting that out of the way, we'll start with our cons as usual. I actually thought it was a con that they changed so much. The first con I have is they changed their identity of the game. I actually thought it was a con. I liked the way the first game was. And also something that was different was the first game felt much more intense. The music was different. The sound effects were different. The buildings felt creepier, and that identity changed as well. And the first game felt, there's a lot of narrative games that change based off of the actions you choose and the lines you choose to speak. And so that's not unique, but being in this creepy, almost like horror-like environment in radiated Chernobyl felt good, and the way they did the narrative stuff felt good. And sure, it was really simple with just the repeated cycle of coming back to your base, doing whatever upgrades, trainings, going to sleep, missions, training, upgrades, sleep, over and over again. But it was what the game was, and the first game was really enjoyable in that way. Then the next thing we have, and a lot of the stuff ends up being quality stuff, but the mouth animations, it just right off the bat, I started looking like the mouths look unnatural. They don't look very good. They seem very low quality on the complexity of the animations, and it's just not great. Then going right along with the mouth animations is the AI voices. Now, sometimes you will get straight up like robotic text reading, text to speech type of sounds, and other times just the voice acting is really bad, where it's like they took AI and tweaked it to give it an accent, give it a voice. But overall, a lot or all of the voice acting seems to be AI, and they confirm that there is AI voice acting in this, and it sounds terrible. And by AI, we really mean text to speech, and it just sounds really bad. Next, we have the photo mode UI. I put this on cons. This is not a big con, but it just shows the lack of quality because I'm on an Xbox controller and so many of the prompts are Xbox. I go into the photo mode and the controls are PlayStation buttons. And then also when I try to exit out of it, I can hit B to get out of it, but then when I have to decline or accept leaving photo mode, I had to use my mouse. So that wasn't great either. And then I have button prompt for portals. When a portal opens in the world, you don't get to just walk through it. You have to go up to it and then hit a button. Just doesn't feel smooth, doesn't feel complete, feels kind of lazy. You should be able to just walk right into the portal. That's what a portal's for, obviously. Then we have delay between voice lines. There'd be a weird delay where like a character would finish a voice line and they just sit there like this. And then the voice acting, and then like the main guy who you are, Cole Gray, then speaks. Then that goes right into the next con. No voicing for selected dialogue. Now, this isn't that uncommon in games, but it's something that I always find as a negative in games is when I select a dialogue, the character that I pick, that line is not voiced. So you pick it, and then the character, the NPC you're speaking to, then just speaks right away instead of your character voicing that line. It's not that uncommon, but it's something that I've never liked, and I wish that it would voice it, especially because it's not like some games where none of the main character's lines are voiced. He has voiced lines, it's just not when you select responses. And then I had this con in all caps, performance. The game performs terribly. I had a couple crashes. It randomly, like when you would fast travel, when you'd come out of the fast travel, it would drop sometimes all the way down to single digit FPS, where other times it'd be at 70, 80 FPS. Things rendered in like it had texture on demand streaming, which is never a good thing. Warzone deals with that now. And it makes things look like Play-Doh. It makes things load in late. That's not great. Just the performance was really bad. The frames would drop really low out of nowhere. Not even just when you fast travel, just out of nowhere, frames would drop super duper low. And that was not great either. Then I have quality on here as a con, but so many of these cons are specifically about quality related things. We don't need to go into that. There's something else that I forgot to put on the cons, and it's the stamina system. So I'm fine with games having stamina. The problem in this game is, now you do have unlimited stamina when you're not in combat, and sometimes literally in combat isn't enemies on the other side of the wall, but somehow it picked it up and you hear the music playing and now you have limited stamina. But you have one stamina bar, which you can increase, and there's stamina shots that you can use mid-fight. But the stamina is tied to blocking, meleeing, sprinting, dodging, all one stamina bar. So you get in like boss fights in this game, and you just get destroyed if you can't get far enough away, because you get, not only do you get stunned when you get hit, there's also the lack of stamina, so it's hard to like escape and get away. And the stamina system, I think there should be separate stamina, or there should just be more stamina by default, because you run out so easily. And so I just don't like the way the stamina works in this game. And then the last con I have is updates don't update save versions. So if you watch my playthrough, which I'll link down below, it will have a pop-up after there was a big update and said, your last save is this version, and not this version, or whatever it says. And some features may not work, or some things may not load. Whereas like every other game, when you update the game, it updates the version that your save is on. And so that's just really low quality and really not great that your version doesn't get updated when the game itself updates. So those are all the cons. We have them changing their identity, the mouth animations, the AI voices, the photo mode UI, button prompt for portal instead of just walking right in, the weird delay between some voice lines, not voicing selected dialogues and responses. The performance was really bad. The quality of the game just does not feel good. Oh, one of the quality things is sometimes you're talking to people and their head will shrink and then balloon back out throughout the conversation. I noticed it was only a few male characters, so I don't know how that's going to be fixed. But heads just shrinking and increasing, changing the looks of characters. It was really bad. And then the updates don't update save versions and the stamina system. We don't have any so-sos. There's only goods and bads about this game. No kind of goods. So for pros, we have the different combat styles, like I mentioned. So the main styles, there's a melee build, there's a ranged build with guns, ranged, and then there's the science build where you have like these big wrist cuffs that you can launch like elemental stuff at. And then there's mixes where you have melee and gun mix, melee and science mix, gun and science mix. So you can pick what's your favorite style, and that's the fighting style that your character has. And little bit of a spoiler, but doesn't spoil any of the story. Later in the game, you're able to also add other personalities, essentially up to 3 other ones. So you can keep changing the combat style. And if you watch my reviews, I give points to games anytime that you are able to customize the experience to your liking and make it more of an enjoyable game for yourself, while other people are able to do different things to make it an enjoyable game for themselves. I'm always a fan of customizable experiences, and having the different combat styles in the different classes gives you that, not to mention the skill trees, the attribute trees, and so you can make the experience really your own. Then on here, I also have the tablet that you can carry around. Before, it was just that little hand scanner. Now there's a tablet, and the tablet just works better. It shows radiation zones better. I think it shows radiation zones. It shows enemies. And you can still scan it for items. It doesn't show you the specific type of items, but a little logo pops up to let you know where items are. It shows you where vendors are. It has a compass on it with the distance. The tablet is way better than the little handheld scanner that we had in the first Chernobylite. And the one thing that actually would almost knock it down to a so-so is the game is heavily dependent on scanning things with that tablet, where I didn't think it was always necessary, but that's not really a big deal. Another pro we have is the new base building. Like I said, the base building has been improved in this game to where you have a grid system where you can actually build out and expand the base, which you couldn't before. The thing that almost knocks us into a so-so is there's not as much of a management of like air quality and power and radiation safety, and I liked that little bit of depth that was in the base before, but it wasn't a huge part of the game that really mattered to me, so not having it. Now there is some management to it if you really build out the base, which I'm sure you will more when the full version comes out, but the base building upgrade overall is good, and the less management of the quality of the base isn't a huge drawback, but it is something that I would like to see be more important. And then we have enemy diversity. There's a lot more enemy diversity than there was in the first game. In the first game, there was just a couple different types of Chernobylite, but now there is, off the top of my head, 4 or 5 different types of Chernobylite. Plus, there's the brutes out there that are humans that will attack you, so it's not just NAR soldiers and a couple different Chernobylite. There's a lot more Chernobylite. There's a lot more. There's the brutes, which instead of the NARs, now there's brutes out in the world. And also, sometimes you can make an enemy out of somebody based off of the dialogue responses you choose and end up having to fight them. Plus, in the early access, there was a few boss fights. I won't say how many or when they occur, but there was boss fights as well. And so there was a lot more diversity of enemies overall, which obviously makes the game more interesting, more fun, and something that I'm a fan of. And then I already mentioned it with the different combat styles, but there's multiple character builds. Like I said, as you progress through the game, you're able to add more different personalities, essentially, where you could have one that was melee, gun, science, and then a fourth one that's a combination of the two. You could have your main one you picked and the 3 combination ones, and it really, like I said, gives you your own choices in the game, gives you your own experience. And I don't have it on the pros, but just the overall customization of the experience with the different attribute points leading to different available dialogues like in the first game. If you don't have a certain amount of attribute points, you can't pick certain responses and dialogues versus if you have other attribute points. So that's good. being able to just choose different sponsors that change how the game plays out is good. The different combat styles is good. So being able to customize the base layout and everything, so you can really have your own experience, is definitely a pro as well. With that all being said, this game, it was, I wish I could say it was okay. It was bad. It was bad. The story was so-so. I think as the story started to develop more, I got more into the story as I got to the end of the early access period. I think I spent about 9 or 10 hours playing through it. So it's not a super short early access period. It's almost as long as the original game was. So it was a little boring. The quality and the performance of the game were really, 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 really not up to par for it being $40 currently. If it was like 10 or 20 for early access, I'd feel a lot better. But being like $40, not really worth $40. I could see as this game gets finished, this game being a lot better, especially because they're saying between the open world, the story, and everything, something like 40% more time. I don't know. It was some ridiculous amount more time that you could spend in this game than you could in the first one. You know, exploring the open world, doing missions. So this game as it comes together, I could see being better. But as it stands right now, I'd probably have to give it, I don't want to be too harsh because it is early access, but I'm trying to not, I'm trying to judge it fairly as I do with other games. I'm going to go ahead and for now give it a 4.5. I hate doing half points, but I couldn't decide between a 4 or 5, but a 4.5 out of 10. I could see cleaning up the quality. The story keeps expanding. Getting this up to a 6, maybe a 6.5. I don't think I could push it to a 7. I don't think I could see getting there, but as it stands right now, it's a 4.5. But if you got $40 to spend and you want to try out something different, go try it out for yourself. Don't solely take my word for it unless you are really trying to decide where you want to put your money in gaming and you don't want to just keep throwing money away. Go try it out for yourself if it's something that interests you. If it interests you, you might like it more than I do. A lot of my rating comes from the quality, and it wasn't super duper exciting. But yeah, we're going to go with a 4.5 out of 10 on Chernobylite 2 Exclusion Zone. Hopefully, when this gets out of early access, it's better. I will review it again, and I will link the playlist down below of my playthrough through the early access period if you want to check that out for yourself. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you like this type of content and want to see it first. And comment down below what you think of Chernobylite 2, or my thoughts, my review, etc. And I also have my Twitch and all my social medias linked down below if you want to check me out anywhere else. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Do I have to get nearby? I don't like that I have to get radiated for this. I mean, I get how that playstyle is fun, but you're doing decent, I guess. But the wrong dog food. Well, yeah. I mean, can they not eat it?
Replenishing the essence with radioactivity may be quite risky, but you managed. It's always give and take.
Yeah, I'm not. Definitely not picking that.
To know when it's worth it.
Well, what
just stopped him.
makes you stronger, right? I'll try not to overdo it.
I'm glad you switched between single and multiple bursts. Gives you many options to deal with enemies.
I'll keep this in mind.
Also, I like the way you tested different types of elemental damage. Unlocking this weapon's potential is key.
I was about to say the same thing.
Well, Greg, there is hope for you, but I advise you to train a bit more. Do you wish to repeat this? Perhaps try out other fighting styles before coming back? It'll give you some more perspective.
I mean, I know which one I'm going with, but I want to try all of them. I already trained with you that I need. First, before I do that, I just want to see what happens if I... Hello? Hopefully they eat it.
The caretaker of the melee arena. Are you one of those?
One of those?
One of those who are all talk and no action. Blah, blah, blah. Are you here to fight or talk? That's what I wanted to hear. You'll be fighting a cutting-edge simulacrum-like opponent. Cannot kill you, but it'll still kick your ass if you underestimate it. You'll get the chance to practice your light and heavy attacks. I want to see if you feel comfortable while fighting with a melee weapon. And don't forget
I mean, I'm
about
not going to
defense.
choose his combats.
If you find yourself in a position to block opponent strikes, do it. Now, enough of this talking. Get in and show me what you can do.
Don't think he will.
Your ass is mine, pal! I'm hit! I guess you would survive in a real combat
Oh,
scenario.
shit.
Not bad. Yeah. Nobody cares about your self-adoration. Only the results matter. Now,
The results were
be
good.
quiet and listen to what I have to say. I really liked your heavy attacks. They require more strength and skill. That's why many recruits avoid performing them. Not you.
I'm used to challenges.
I noticed you preferred to run away from strikes instead of blocking them. If you really have to do this, at least try to roll, dodge, or jump when you're exhausted.
Next time when you create a planewalker, will you make him indestructible? Half of the problems are solved.
Don't be such a smartass. Keep your eyes and ears open and you might actually learn something. Now my favourite part. I'm gonna grade your exercise on the scale from 1 to 10. 6, maybe 7. You're adequate. But if I were you, I'd train a bit more. Do you want to try again? Do what you want.
I will do what I want.
Still waiting for that wrench. Fyodor lost it. Stupid.
Are you ready for the final stage of becoming a planewalker? Splendid. Our medical unit will take care of your transmutation. Ugly thing, but we all have to get through it. But before that, you need to decide if you feel better as an eliminator, emissary, or a scientist.
Emissary.
Maybe you want something in between? This is important, because the MAD team will make sure that the genetic modification target the skills specific for your preferred class.
You said it only happens once, so the decisions will be final.
Usually no. However, a handful of the planewalkers experienced an unusual phenomenon where they were able to connect with their counterparts from another dimension, gaining their skills. The phenomenon remains largely unexplained. We still try to learn what makes them do that. If I were you, I'd make the decision wisely anyway. Brilliant! Welcome to the ranks of elite warriors. I
Change
have no
pill.
doubt you'll accomplish incredible
Dogs are
things.
smart with avoiding